Hi, folks. I'm Peter Lemieux with Rounding Third and Batter Sports. I tell baseball stories. You know, some of the most fun stories to share are when we have real characters whose personality, whose uh, drive, or whatever it is, idiosyncrasies, make them unforgettable in baseball history. I've talked about a few of them. Maybe I should do it again. Rube Waddell comes to mind, Ron LaFleur. There's just all kinds of people who dominate the sports with their personality for good or bad. Cap Anson comes to mind. But today I'm going to focus on one of those characters, the irrepressible Billy Martin. Billy Martin was a utility infielder with the New York Yankees. And then for 6 years, in the last 5 years, he went to other teams. He retired with a 257 batting average. And there's nothing to write home about here, right? Billy Martin afterwards became a manager 9 times. He was hired and fired 9 different times. And while he was known for the fact that no matter what team hired him, they won for a while. But then things grew stale and Billy was gone. Now, with that interesting resume, I find it very interesting that the prestigious historical giant, the New York Yankees, retired Billy Martin's uniform number one. This is a 257 hitter. This is a guy who the Yankees fired as a manager 5 times, and yet they retired his number. There was something about Billy Martin that no matter what went on, the chaos, the self destructive behavior that he had, Billy Martin won. And that's what kept bringing people back to him. So let's do a little story about Billy Martin, not his whole life, just a little story. Billy Martin played ball in high school in the San Francisco area. He actually got suspended 1 year in the playoffs for fighting. Billy Martin got in a lot of fights, fist fights. He pointed out that he never started a fight, and he also never lost one. Well, if you don't count getting in people's face and calling them names and writing them, not starting a fight, that's true. Billy never threw the first punch, but he did induce it several times. One non baseball story is when Billy was managing the Texas Rangers, and they were getting a little tired of all the problems Billy got into. The cops were called to a bar one night because Billy got in a fight with a patron, and he got in a fist fight with him. When the story came out, he was sitting at a bar next to a guy, and they were just talking. And the guy told Billy that he was a marshmallow salesman. And Billy said, "You're a liar," and wouldn't let it go. Billy kept on the guy. When the guy didn't want to talk anymore, Billy kept writing him and writing him. And, nobody sells marshmallows and all this other stuff until finally, alcohol induced, the guy threw a punch at Billy, which Billy loved because he was a good fighter. And he commenced beating the guy up, and the cops were called. And I don't know if he got arrested or whatever, but it was a public scene. Billy Martin gets in a fight with a marshmallow salesman at a bar after the game. But that was Billy's personality. Billy was going to win no matter what. Out of high school, he got signed to minor leagues. He had great fortune that his minor league team in San Francisco manager was Casey Stengel, the same Casey Stengel who would then get hired by the Yankees. Casey Stengel loved Billy Martin. He was just a skinny little kid that could play the infield. He didn't have any power. He was an average hitter, but he worked and worked and worked at his game. He worked at learning the game. He would sit next to Casey Stengel and they would talk about strategies and things that you could do. And Casey Stengel just loved the guy because Billy would try to find a way to win a game. So when Casey got hired to be the manager of the Yankees, no surprise, he had Billy Martin come to spring training. I want to talk about this spring training. Spring training, the Yankees had at spring training Bill Dickey tutoring the catchers. Yogi Berra was one of the catchers. Phil Rizzuto was their shortstop. Johnny Mize, the 38 years old, was picking up grounders off the first base grass. If you include Casey Stengel, that is 6 people currently in the Hall of Fame at this spring training. It was 1950. The Yankees had won the World Series, sweeping the Dodgers 4-0 in 49. So this was a team that was set. The infield was set, and here's this skinny 20-year-old announcing he's going to be the starting shortstop for the Yankees, which was never going to happen with Phil Rizzuto out there. But that didn't bother Billy. He competed and competed and competed, including getting in a fierce argument with Coach Frank Crosetti about how to turn the double play. Billy was so convinced that his method was superior that they screamed at each other until Crosetti finally gave up and say, okay, let's see if it works. And it did. But Billy Martin, as flamboyant as he was never going to start on that team. One would think that Billy Martin was disruptive in the clubhouse because of his personality. Not true. Billy Martin took huge amount of time listening to the very same Frank Crosetti about becoming what they called a clever bat. Clever bat means hitting the ball behind the runner to move him ahead, bunting, learning how to hit and run, how to hit a sacrifice fly. Billy studied that and worked at it and just impressed everyone, not only with his enthusiasm and his interest, but with his work ethic to be creative that way. Now, here's probably one of the most interesting stories about that 1950 team. Number one, Billy Martin actually made the team, and he went into the regular season as a bench warming utility infielder. On that team, at the end of his career, was the iconic Joe DiMaggio. Now, y'all remember, Hello, Mrs. Robinson, Where Have You Gone, Joe DiMaggio? Maybe you don't, but a song by Paul Simon. Joe DiMaggio was Mr. New York Yankee. Mickey Mantle had not arrived yet. And Joe DiMaggio really owned the city in terms of his personality, which was aloof. Joe DiMaggio was not a talker. In high school, he didn't sit around talking to people. In fact, he had very little relationship with the New York Yankee players. He would show up by himself, dress by himself, go work out, play the game really well, shower, and go by himself. And for the most part, because he was Joe DiMaggio, people just let him be. Players would be players, but Joe was different. So here's this young, loudmouth, high-pitched guy named Billy Martin who immediately goes after Joe DiMaggio, not to criticize him, but to try to be his buddy. No one is Joe DiMaggio's buddy. Now, we don't know if it was because they were both from San Francisco, they were both Italian, but outside of those two things, these guys had nothing in common. But for some reason, Joe DiMaggio really liked Billy Martin. The only player on the team that you would see Joe spending time and talking with. After the game, this blew everyone's mind. Joe would take Billy out on the town. He never did that with any players. Now, Joe DiMaggio in New York at that time, if he went to a restaurant, he would let the owner of the restaurant take his picture, and he ate for nothing. Joe DiMaggio was famous for not spending his own money. And Billy went with him, and he got all of that. The same thing when they would go out drinking at a bar, take a picture with the owner, all drinks free. So Billy was living off of Joe's fame and enjoying life, probably doing some other things that the two of them shouldn't have been doing, but they could get away with it because of Joe DiMaggio. So this is the most unusual thing. This young guy, mouthy bench warmer, and Joe DiMaggio are best friends. Joe even dressed him. He would take him to tailors that made his suits, and Billy would get nice suits, all paid for on the goodwill of Joe DiMaggio. Now, here's a funny story. Game was ready to go. Joe DiMaggio shows up, like Joe does, privately comes in, immaculately dressed with a gray suit, starched white shirt like usual, looking like $1,000,000 like Joe always did. Billy Martin runs over to him with a baseball and a pen. He said, Joe, I got a friend back in San Francisco. I want to give him your autograph. Can you sign this ball? So Joe takes the pen to sign the ball. The pen explodes and ink goes all over Joe's shirt. Silence in the locker room. Everyone thought Joe was going to haul off and deck Billy Martin for ruining his clothes. Then Billy started laughing and he said, Joe, it's a joke. It's disappearing ink. Nothing's wrong. And he's laughing away, and Joe is not appreciating the humor at all. He did not like being made fun of. But he quietly waited. The ink disappeared, said nothing, went and played the game. And everyone said, that's the end of that friendship. Billy has pushed this envelope too far. Game's over. The two of them start talking, and they go out together. Billy Martin had an incredible skill with people that people miss with all the tragedies that he had in his life. The other thing that happened that year is when they arrived in Yankee Stadium for the first time, this loudmouth kid who was announcing himself to be a starter privately went out onto the field of Yankee Stadium. He had never seen or been in Yankee Stadium, and he always heard about it. And he just stood there. And no one knows what Billy was thinking, but he just stood there. It was almost like a spiritual experience for him. You can imagine him thinking about Babe Ruth, Lou Gehrig, many pennants, presidents, celebrities that would come to the stadium. And I think he was overwhelmed with it. But also, he developed an appreciation and a love for the New York Yankees that till the day he died, his love for that organization was extreme. He didn't love a lot of the owners and players he would fight with, but the Yankee tradition was built into Billy's DNA. I'm going to end the story with the first day of the season. The Yankees opened up 1950 in Boston at Fenway Park, Billy firmly on the bench. They asked him what he thought about that left field wall, and Billy said, it's pretty close. No kidding, Billy. All right, we got that. Here's how the game goes. Boston is killing them, okay? At the end of 5 innings, it's Boston Red Sox 9, Yankees 0. In the 6th inning, the Yankees score 4 runs. And in the 8th, they got 4 more runs in. They're making an incredible comeback. 2 runners on. Casey sends Billy up to pinch hit his first major league at bat. And Billy's standing there, and what does he do against a left-handed pitcher who had won 25 games the year before, Mel Parnell? Billy hits the ball off the wall for a double, bringing in 2 runs. Well, the Yankees then put the game away by batting around in the 8th inning so that Billy got to come up a second time. In his second time in the same inning as a pinch hitter, Billy got a single. So in his first major league game, he got 2 for 2 in 1 inning, and the Yankees won the game 15-10. The New York Daily News referred to Billy's hits as lightning bolts from an effervescent rookie. What happened next? Billy didn't play for 2 weeks. There's no room for him on his team. So the great quote that Billy made later in life is that if I had gotten 3 hits, they wouldn't have paid me for 3 weeks. But because I got 2 hits, I only had to wait 2 weeks to play again, which was done in jest, but also a little dig at the Yankees for not playing him more. There's so much to the Billy Martin story as I was researching this and enjoying all I had. Truthfully, we could do a couple hours just on Billy Martin, but let's stay to our format and just stay with 10 minutes. Folks, like, subscribe, okay? That's very, very important to us here. So please like and subscribe, make comments, and tell your friends about the baseball stories, because this is one and there's a lot more coming. So for the rest of you, have a great day. Enjoy baseball. It is a gift from God to entertain us and to make us think about what's important in life. So hats off to Billy Martin, and I hope you guys have a great rest of the day.